You're listening to the Good Question Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Our goal is to make each of our guests exclaim, that's a good question. I don't know the answer. Because when that happens, it means you, the listener, may be inspired to learn more beyond the interview and to ask great questions yourself that lead to new insights. In this podcast, we cover historical and current anthropology, comparative religion, and history. Welcome, and let's get started.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Good Question Podcast. Our guest today is Dan Rodgers. He's the author of the book called Escape the Clock. It's your program or guide for financial freedom and early retirement. So Dan's goal is to teach comprehensive financial literacy in an easy to understand way that helps people succeed and it makes it more likely that they'll actually follow the program and where they want to go financially. So welcome to the program, Dan. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, tell me a bit about your background. Were you historically good or bad with money growing up, and how did it lead to all that you do today?
Yeah, money was definitely not part of my origin story at all. I grew up in a lot of poverty. My dad was doing the best he could, but he was in the VHS business back when that was first invented. He had Betamax VHS tapes, was trying to get into the rental thing, and this is way before Blockbuster or any of that stuff. And anyways, when the chain rental movie industry was really taking off, as a small business owner, he ended up going bankrupt, and we were just stuck in debt pretty much forever after from there. And we ended up moving a bunch, and I was like a new kid at school every other year of my life. That was like the standard. And there was really no plan for higher education, but I do remember feeling a sense of a lack of control and wanting to change my fate. I did not enjoy not being able to make ends meet and worrying about my future. I wanted to do better. So I remember doing a Yahoo search back then about how could I make some money if I had to borrow so much money. And I ended up borrowing over $100,000 in school debt. And that was while I was working, while in university. But I ended up doing a computer science major, not because I have any talent at math or anything like that, but simply because I knew I needed a job that would pay bills. And anyways, long story short there, I ended up just constantly doing the best I could salary-wise, but never really getting ahead. And it took me a while to get myself financially educated, made a lot of mistakes. But eventually I realized the thing I ended up teaching companies, which is how to run these programs, was something I could do for myself. And I took that rigor and I built myself a financial freedom plan that actually started making a difference in my outcomes. And before I knew it, I was actually on a strong trajectory, and I actually beat my goal by a few years. I retired at 43. I say retired, but not really retired. I'm just not. I have work optional as a choice in my life. I choose what I want to do, how I spend my time. And now I decided to use that time to help teach others and help empower more people, because honestly, a lack of education is one of the biggest detriments out there.
Well, what are some elements of the financial plan that you came up with that finally worked? What changed?
Yeah, when I was starting out, I was doing what everyone does, right? Like trying to make ends meet. And so I did not know what a 401k was. I just remember it was something presented to me in paperwork that was going to take more money out of my paycheck, was really troublesome. Luckily, I had a good conversation with someone, with my father, and he's like, no, you should do that. Just take the match. That was a good decision. But I was, doing all the normal stuff. I wanted to own a home. We were starting a family, all that stuff. And the cost just kept mounting and mounting and mounting. And I was noticing that my salary was just not increasing as fast as debt was increasing, especially when you add something like a mortgage on top of it. So nothing was really helping us make any progress forward, regardless of how much I was working and promotions and things like that. So I realized, okay, well, there's only a couple options I have. First, the amount of debt that I'm taking here is going to keep me buried forever, especially if my income is increasing at such a slow rate. So as I put the plan together, I really started tracking stuff very carefully. And through the tracking, I had these aha moments. And for instance, I was throwing a lot of money at my mortgage. And I was seeing actually that wasn't making as much sense as if I put that money in other places, such as paying off other higher interest debts first, instead of trying to pay off a mortgage, which, you don't even necessarily end up living there long enough to get enough returns out of that. So I had a different plan from there. I said, okay, I'm going to put enough in there to get enough equity just to get rid of PMI, private mortgage insurance, because that is a fee that's hurting me. And once I get there, I can now redirect that money to school loans. And then I will reduce that debt. And then I will direct my money towards reducing all credit card debt to zero. And then I will live at zero credit card debt. And so it started to become a true debt management plan. And on top of that, I was thinking about how do I start getting more income? Because the only things we really have control over are spending and income cash flow. So if I could get more income in and I could control my spending better, well, now I might actually see the needle moving. So the plan was really showing me all these things through data. So I got really good at spending. I noticed that every time we got a raise or anything, our lifestyle would inflate a little, like, oh, we can now spend money on this or that. But
I've gotten good at spending too. It's not that hard.
It's not hard at all. If you guess, I bet you if I gave you
my daughters are really good at spending. So unfortunately.
Well, we're kind of bred and trained that spending is what we're supposed to do. It's a consumer economy, right? And that actually creates a lot of trouble for a lot of people, because if you just look at some of the numbers for a moment, the average credit card interest is now 22.8%, but the average stock investment return is 10% per year, right? So if you think about it, it's getting out of consumer debt is mathematically impossible, even if you're doing the best investments you can do. So you just have to, one, do the hard work to get away from paying monthly credit card debt. Once you're out of that, then you just have to make sure that you're not paying that premium. You're spending what you can actually afford to spend so that you have cash flow comfortably left to take some risks, because sometimes investing can be risky. And if you have time to recover, that's great. But if you don't, now you can't afford to take those risks. So I started to learn all that stuff, and I was making mistakes, but getting better from data to figure out what to do. And I started to see real progress. And so a couple of things that we ended up doing was, I can tell you the good and the bad, but on the good side, I ended up making some job moves. And this turned out to be really, really smart, because if you stay there was a Forbes article that talked about employees who stay at companies for more than 2 years earn approximately 50% less in their lifetime than those who switch. So loyalty to an employer is actually a tax. So loyalty doesn't actually pay. Luckily for me, I was too antsy to stay. I felt like, okay, if I got a promo, I might be making a little more money. But inflation was going up as well. I could see that in my data. But now the baseline is that promo. They're not going to have any incentive to give me another promo for at least another couple years. But if I switch to a new job, that baseline is instantly not there anymore. Like, I'm coming in at whatever level I was in. I can spend maybe a shorter amount of time showing I could work at a higher level there. So I would switch jobs every 2 years, and that was working really well. Now, that's not always fun, but I found I did as far as I could go where I lived, which was in Ohio back then. And I just could not get paid more money anywhere there. So I ended up taking my young family and moving out to the West Coast. We moved to Washington State because there was more tech opportunities back then for us to make more money. Now, what I didn't understand is the cost of living was so much higher. So there's trade-offs with these things. So we now had the control of spending even better, but the income was better. On top of that, I said, well, what can I do outside of work to get more income? And I started looking at passive investing opportunities, dividends, rental royalties. I even wrote a book. I was trying to do anything I could to figure out how to get more cash flow so I could start to make bigger and faster dents in things. But ultimately, what I have to say is the spending control ultimately did the best, and automatically contributing to investment accounts on a regular basis. Those two things really started to compound, because compounding is really powerful. If you were to save just $500 a month for 25 years, you can end up making $1.5 million just through compounding alone. But if you were to wait and start 10 years later, that's actually isn't just a $60,000 less in contributions. It's a $500,000 loss in compounding. So it's an exponential difference. So compounding was everything. And luckily, because I was doing some level of investments, I did that 401k, I was doing some stuff into stocks, I was able to start to see a snowball effect. Control the debt, all that.
Yeah, in my life though, and a lot of people I know, I mean, stuff comes up, stuff breaks,
Yeah.
extra expense, whatever, and then it's like you're back to square one.
Yeah.
Or you can't cover it, and then you're really in trouble. So what do you do for the inevitable, upsets that happen that cost money?
Absolutely. 37% of Americans cannot cover a $400 emergency with cash. That's the truth. That's the situation that we're living in. It is tough. Average new car payment, $738 a month. That's expensive. A lot of younger generation can't afford to even consider enough for a down payment for a home.
Like, it's not just with the car, by the way. It's not just that. It's insurance, gas, all that stuff. So it's really well over $1,000. Sounds like for a new car.
It's rough, and costs keep seeming to go up. Right, inflation is really tough. There's a lot of things that can hold you back and beat you down. And what I found is that's where the planning piece really saved me, because once I was writing things down, it was doing a couple things to me. We have this dual mind, the emotional mind and the logical mind. And when we are planning, we're using our logical mind. We're dreaming ahead. We're thinking forward. We're trying to come up with contingencies. We're trying to be ready for an inevitable situation. When we don't do that, we default to the emotional mind, which isn't always bad. The emotional mind has intrinsic drive. It's what can be passion and grit and all that good stuff. It's amazing. But sometimes when we're reacting to something, one, it feels like we're the victim of something instead of it just being a road bump. It feels like catastrophe. We might do something that we later regret, like, oh, I don't know what else to do, so I'm going to take money out of my retirement account. Well, that has a much larger impact than if you were to maybe even do another tough thing, like take a private loan. So what I noticed is by having the plan, what it allowed me to do is, one, I do these things called pre-mortems, which is think ahead for disasters and come up with contingency ideas ahead of time of what I might do if something goes wrong. So that was really helpful. Then there's this idea of a post-mortem where it does go wrong, and you go and you look back and you do this blame-free analysis to try to understand, what did I miss? How do I do better next time? It's about learning. But ultimately, it's this idea that because there's a plan, you're able to stay focused on the greater goal. These things aren't the end of having a plan B is great, but even if you don't have a plan B, you can just look at this as, okay, instead of that emotional decision where I take that thing, I have a plan in front of me. I can see what would happen if I were to take it out of this account versus that account, or ask for help, or do this or do that. And that's really great. Plus, with the plan, I was able to go and talk to people and show that to them. Like I remember I had 7 different finance advisors throughout my time, sitting down and saying, hey, this thing came up. We were having a problem. We had 3 mortgages at one point, and we were drowning in that. And it was just too hard to even pay bills. And I remember saying, look, this is our situation. I have all the data. I've ran some, cost analysis, which is right, which is wrong. How should we think about it? And it was a very constructive conversation, way more than if I just showed up and said, please save me. What do I do? I would have had to put it like hat in hand. I would have followed whatever that person would have told me, which is likely motivated by how they got paid, instead of motivated by me being educated and coming in with real data and saying, hey, I have an idea here. Let's talk about this. Let's collaborate. So this is what I was learning. Like, ignorance gets taken advantage of. I mean, the whole system is predatory. Think about the debt system and all of that. So the education through the planning, that is what really not only got me ahead, but it kept me on track when those things popped up.
And the education consisted really of reading books and your personal experiences with different types of savings and allocations, or like, what are the elements of a real financial education, you'd say?
Well, back then there was no YouTube. There was nothing like that. So a lot of it was trial and error, just kind of like use the data to see what worked, try different things out. Because I was younger, I had more time to recover from some of those mistakes, but some were a lot more costly than others, for sure. I would talk to people I trusted, like my father-in-law and others that I thought would know something about things. And then I'd pick up an occasional book. And I found these books are pretty great. I have a lot of books I recommend to people on different topics. But the problem I have with the books is that they typically have a philosophy or maybe a framework idea, and they'll talk about something and it'll be really useful, but it's not comprehensive. Like I needed a guide. I need something to say, here's all these different pieces you're going to run into. Here's how to think about them. And here's how to put them together into a plan that worked for you, not for someone else who's more risk averse or more risk seeking or whatever it is, personalize it. So I was kind of coming up with that idea as I was going along because I was realizing that's what I need to hand my kid. That's what I wish I could have handed my younger self. But as I got older, online tools, I found lots of great, one, you can get free meetings with financial advisors. The first one's always going to be free. I would just go talk to people. They're trying to pitch you on their business. They're trying to build a rapport. You can learn a ton from that free meeting. That's one thing. Online videos, you never know what people are trying to sell you on, but there's usually some truth in there, some kernel of goodness in there. But then as I was getting really educated, I found that I could go and suss out who knew something on a topic really well. And I started listening to podcasts and different niches. I started knowing how to find good books. Now I can use AI effectively. I know how to put good prompts in to do better research and to make better decisions. The tools are getting better and better and better, but they can also be used to push misinformation and lead you in bad ways too if you're not careful. But I find education is critical. That's why I teach. That's why I'm trying to do this kind of stuff, because a little education is the best thing you can do, because you are the most biased person for your financial outcome, but you need the right weapons to do it.
So how do you know who to listen to and who not to listen to?
Well, I built a little bit of a spidey sense through the years. For instance, when someone goes right to a life-term health insurance policy right off the bat, I start going, wait, whoa. Why are you pushing a life insurance investment vehicle? Whoa, that doesn't seem like the right answer for most people. What's going on there? Or if something sounds too good to be true, it is. I've learned that. There's always trade-offs with everything. Some people would tell you an annuity is great. It's guaranteed money for life. Other people would tell you it's the stupidest thing you could ever do. It's expensive and you're locking in usually with an insurance company and there's all kinds of fees that will bite you. So there's gray area in all this. There's always nuance with it. But when someone always tries to come like there's a silver bullet, I know I can't trust that person. Because there is no silver bullet. What there is a bunch of effective strategies that all can solve like a toolkit. You need a good toolkit. When someone can come in and be educated enough to ask a question and then actually listen, then I know I can trust what I'm hearing. And by the way, that's advice to give people for when you talk to a finance advisor. When you go and do that free meeting, if they come in there and they are promising you any type of return, run. No one can promise a return. Nobody. They're going to have some spreadsheet. That's usually what you're paying for. They're going to make you do the work to get the data into the spreadsheet. They're going to ask you for your cost of living and your spending and all that stuff. But they'll generate a beautiful report. They might make you feel better about some strategy. You'll learn some stuff. But really, what they're doing is they're using software to model out some stuff, and then they'll maybe push you to some mutual funds. But maybe you don't want to do mutual funds because of the fees, right? Maybe you prefer a low-cost index fund. These are the kinds of things I had to learn because when I didn't know, I would just go, oh, okay, I don't know better. That sounds good. But I would have a finance advisor go, okay, well, yeah, this is we'll be able to get you a 20% return. I'm like, that sounds amazing. Yes, please. I'm like, well, what about taxes? Oh, I don't know about taxes. You probably should go get a Oh, well, how can you guarantee a 20% return if you haven't even thought about the tax ramification? Like this kind of thing, right? So it's like, as soon as you push a little, if it falls apart, maybe you shouldn't be trusting it so much.
Yeah, it makes sense. What about the discipline? Let's say you've been saving for a few months and you grow tired of it, or I don't know. You just how much discipline does it take once you're doing the right thing to stay doing the right thing for 25 years? It sounds easy. Just put away as much for 20, 30 years, but a lot happens that time. What do you do when life happens?
I love that question so much. Yeah, no, look, it's not easy to stay focused on any task. I mean, this is why everyone has a New Year's goal that lasts until the end of January. That's hard to go and work on these kind of things, even when they're good for us. We know that. And when we talk about our rational selves and planning and data and talking to a finance person, that's not fun. And for most people, that's not fun. Spending is fun. And there's a reason the system is built to market in the way it does, and that the dopamine hit that you feel is rewarding you, even status wise, for how well you are at spending. But that doesn't get you ahead. That doesn't get you to freedom when it gets to a decision about, do I want to work or not? And that's what I'm about. I'm about giving you the choice of having to know how and when you want to work, not just working until 65 because the government sets some age for you and you hope that the 401k or 403b did it, or the truth and Social Security or whatever would be there. That's really, it creates a lot of anxiety for people, and that's no way to live. It's a lot of stress. So to answer your question though, what I think it comes down to always is value. Like when you feel you're getting value out of your investment of your time, it's actually making a difference in your life. Now it nudges your behavior in the right direction in a sticking way, because there's intrinsic and extrinsic drive. The intrinsic drive, which I was talking about before, is that I mentioned motion, but it's really that grit or that internal drive to see something through. Some people have it in spades. Others need a little help sticking through with that thing. And that's where the extrinsic motivators really help, going, okay, I have a spending problem. First, you got to be honest about it. The first thing you have to do is look at your spending and see how bad it is. That's a one-time cost. You don't have to do it all the time. Just have to look and see where you stand. Then as just looking through it, you're going to start to come up with ideas on how to improve things. Oh, wow, I had no idea the subscription costs went up, or I have so many, or wow, I wasn't putting that on my right card. I would have been saving money if I'd put it on my health card. Like there's all kinds of these ideas will pop up. Instantly, you're saving money. And that feels good. It's not a budget. It's just looking at your life and trying to make some optimization so you can have more money in your pocket. Now, the question is, what do you do with that money? Well, investing it takes work. You have to have a brokerage account. You have to go and put the money in that account. Then you have to pick the right stock, and then you got to do that purchase. That can be a lot for a lot of people. But what if instead of me saying, okay, here's $1,000, go figure it out, what if it was automatically set up to do it? And so that one-time effort, instead of, becoming every month effort that maybe you stop doing, the one-time effort is the setup. So you have the brokerage account, but you automatically have whatever it is, $500 going into investments based on your target allocation goal. There's so many tools out there that will do this for you now. Great apps that'll do this.
Well, one thing came to me. I don't know if you tested this, but having money go in every week or every month automatically versus like, what if you made it a really big deal? You deliberately made it not automated and it was analog, and you had to walk somewhere and deposit money and blah, blah, blah. But you made it a ceremony. Like you made it a big deal. And this is what I'm doing. Like this time of the month, I go and I deposit $200 into my whatever future freedom fund or something. And like, I make it a big presentation, like not an automated thing. Do you think that would help or backfire? Or
that's super smart. Yeah. And I tell you, this worked for me a lot because I'm a project manager. So milestones are a big part of what a project plan is. And what is a milestone? It's a significant moment in time we're celebrating. And so when I paid off my mortgage to my home, we went out to dinner. We celebrated each other for that sacrifice, that moment. We didn't, we really made sure we took a moment to enjoy where we got to. But you can do that on the smallest things. You can do that on that first credit card that you pay off, the small interest one. You could do it on anything, and you should, because all these things is you making your future life easier, your future self more wealthy, your future self less stressed. Maybe you can work at a job you love to work at because now you have options. So yes, that is part of the extrinsic motivators I was mentioning, which is couple rewarding yourself with the thing you did. There's this idea of, there's a behavioral psychologist had this idea of actually coupling the things you want to do or the indulgences you have with the things you need to do. So if you have a spending problem, one, try to make it harder on yourself to spend. Say, okay, I'm only going to spend X amount of money I put into, or I only spend cash and I have to force myself to get the cash out. I'm not allowed to swipe the card or whatever. Barriers help. The second, though, is if you do spend, make sure you're coupling it with something that you need to do for yourself, such as, okay, I can spend, but I'm going to look at how I'm spending, or I'm going to also invest. Because when you start coupling these things and celebrating yourself for when you're doing things well, what you're doing is you're nudging your behavior towards the positive way, place you want it to be, and it will stick. And it won't just be a little thing. It'll be something that becomes you because you're striving to be a better version of who you are.
That's good. Where do you see students of yours or followers of your stuff? Where do they fall out? Or where does the typical person fall out? Is like the last 3 months on a plan and then blow up? Or, what are the watermarks or the real hard times in doing this?
Yeah. Where I see people really fall out is when they get going, but then they stop communicating. And things will get hard. I guarantee they get hard. Something will test that plan and things can fall apart. But like I had one person popped to mind when you were saying that, who was doing really well, like got the plan together, was making real progress, they had bought a timeshare and they had never used it. And we looked at it and they had spent over $80,000 on that. and got no value out of it. And so, we made that one of the milestones was to get that release. We made milestones to consolidate some insurance things to save a bunch of money, a bunch of things. Anyways, all this progress got made and they were feeling really good, and they kind of just went back to their normal life and thought everything was kind of fixed and just stopped working on the plan. And what happened was, and then stopped talking to me, and I wasn't sure what was going on. And I touched base later, and it turned out there was all these new problems because just dealing with the symptoms without actually dealing with the root issues, that doesn't change anything. Like, it's like, okay, I paid off all my credit cards. Awesome. I'm debt free. And then the next month you're drowning in credit card debt because you didn't change the spending, that kind of thing. So I think it's when people just continue to go back to autopilot instead of allowing themselves to go and do the permanent growth that the plan is helping guiding and communicating and talking to people. Because ultimately we need to hold ourselves accountable, but having people in our lives that help hold us accountable, that can make a big difference.
You see like typical behaviors, watershed moments where people fall off. Like, holidays, they want to buy stuff for people, or, I don't know. I guess it's certain life events, obviously losing a job, really bad stuff. I mean, most people would fall off, but, I don't know, have you seen any other places where there's problems?
Yeah, you can actually have a contingency plan for any life event. There's none. I mean, a layoff, forced retirement situation, a death, all of it. And I know it sounds a little morbid, but the truth is you can have considered in your plan how to deal with those things. Now, I'm not saying everybody has the most comprehensive plans of all time. Absolutely not. I don't even have that. But yes, there are big events in our lives that will test us harder than others. Job loss is one of the most common I've seen, where our human capital is what we put into our work. And as we're young, it is our biggest asset. When nothing is more valuable than the amount of money we can make from our wages from our job, losing that not only hurts your financial situation, it hurts a lot of people's identity. And I don't know if any plan can fix that, to be honest, because if you lost your job and it's not just a money problem, but your sense of self is now in question, that leads to depression, that lead to identity crises, all kinds of stress. And it's hard to focus on your financial freedom or whatever, or maybe even just debt elimination when you're worried about who you are. That's a much harder issue to deal with. So yeah, those kinds of things I think are really hard. And we can always have a plan B about, okay, let's think about the future. What would happen if your whole industry went away? What would you do instead? How much of your why is your identity tied into this job? What are you getting from it? How could you get that from a retirement? Because 40% of new retirees end up clinically depressed. It's a sobering number.
Regardless of the age or what?
Regardless of age, yeah. Early retirees as well. And I was shocked by that number. I really was. I was like, oh man, all these people are retired. They're free. They can do what they want. But the truth is a lot of people lose a lot when they stop working. They tie so much into their job. And sometimes the way that you stop working isn't part of some grand story that you were hoping it would be. It could be a forced retirement. It could be, oh, I just got old. I had to stop working. I hit the age. And plus, you can be really lonely at that point. But the way I talk about in the book and the way I did it is about not running away from your working life, but bringing the best of that life forward into your next chapter. It's like a graduation. So you're celebrating the end of your working time because you've done all the financial things you need to do. So you don't need that paycheck anymore. Now you have your time back and you can focus that time as a capital, as a source of capital. You can spend it on relationships, spend it on developing new skills, making new type sources of money, all types of things. And that's why I'm so busy as a quote unquote early retiree. And I promise you, I am not depressed at all. I am more socially motivated and active and doing things than I've ever done in my working life. But I get it. Like when something gets taken away from you, it feels like a loss. But if you frame it in the right way and you have it as part of a plan about that isn't the end of a chapter, this is going to be the beginning of my next chapter. And you've thought about how to make sure you're not losing those things that provide you the most happiness in your life. And you can spend the way you want to spend. You can still travel the way you want to travel. You can do the things you want to do. Then I think it can be a really positive moment.
How did you avoid getting depressed when you retired? Like, what did you feel like? Like, now what do I do? Or
well, first I delayed it. I had hit my goal and I still kept working. And it was irrational. Like I shouldn't have been working. There had just been layoffs boss in my industry. I was a senior manager at a big tech company, and I had all these reduction of force, and I picked up all that work, and I was working myself into the hospital kind of thing. But I kept doing it. It was irrational. And I remember it was my wife on our 20th wedding anniversary. She kind of said, "What is wrong with you? Why do you keep working?" And it's all the same stuff we tell ourselves, right? Oh, the job needs me. What would happen? My team needs me, like da 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 da. But I woke up and I realized, wow, okay, I'm scared. I'm scared of what it would be like that first Monday where I'm not going to work. I'm scared of what I might lose. And I went back to my transition plan and I looked at it all and I realized, hey, this is actually really exciting. I'm actually really excited about what I do. And I also took a trial run. I had time. I had 3 months away from work where I actually pretended to be retired and I actually worked on my health goals and seeing people and all that stuff. And it made me feel better and more confident. So to answer your question, when I did that transition, when I actually, that first Monday came along, I remember no alarm set. I woke up when I woke up. I then said, I got this whole day ahead of me. I had some general structure in mind. I knew I was going to work out. I was going to walk the dogs. I was going to start writing the book I ended up writing, Escape the Clock. I knew I was going to do some of that stuff, but I had no pressure to do any of it. It was just an internal thing, like a to-do list for me. And that felt really freeing and really good. And the first week can feel a little bit surreal. Like, is this real? But then by the second week, and this is, I think, where the depression comes in for a lot of people. It's like, okay, I'm rested, but now what? For me, I had already started a lot of things. And so I was really motivated and excited to work on those things. And that has only continued. And your time is so valuable, but you will fill it yourself given the chance if you get excited about enough stuff to do. And that's kind of what I end up doing.
What about if you have a big group of people that are following your plan? What about creating local groups where they can meet up and talk about plans together or get together and just fellowship with other people that are trying to do this same thing? Maybe that would be something powerful.
It is. And I did something similar to that. So when I left, part of my transition plan was I purposely went and I did this kind of like rodeo show where I went and talked with everybody. And, the people you have real relationships at your job or in your life, they'll make time for you. They'll talk to you. Others will be like, I'm too busy. Well, okay. That was interesting. All right. I guess that one's not going to continue. But the ones that did, people, they were really opening up to me about how feeling trapped and things like that. We really bonded over what I was doing. But I asked them to schedule time with me after my retirement started. And so I had put a free calendar scheduling app where people could just throw time on a calendar. And so I was just slowly booking it up with like post work life meetings with people, just video calls. And from that, I created a bit of a momentum of maintaining some of those relationships. Now, some of them ended up being people that just needed help with their financial stuff. And I was happy to do that, still do that. But others have become great friends. And some of them, when I posted on, I think it was LinkedIn, what I was doing, I had people reach out to me and talk to for quite a long time who said, hey, guess what? I consider myself early retired because I got laid off. I just never went back to work. And so I ended up creating a small group with these folks and I learned so much. Some were doing really well, making more money than ever, really happy. Others are kind of struggling, but together we could talk about all that stuff. And now there's like subreddits where people get together and talk and share ideas and support each other. There's all kinds, like the community aspect is real and you can find it. You don't have to self-isolate. But the other big thing I did is I love shooting pool. I'm a billiards player. That's my passion. I wish I was better at it. So I made it a goal to get better at it. I got a table, I practice an hour a day, and I started a team. And now I play on 2 different teams twice a week. And my social sphere exploded through that activity. And it became real, genuine friendships that I really wouldn't have time to have done, honestly, if I'd been working.
So it's not just money, but it's time for friendships. It's time for family. It's time for a lot of cool things that money can help you, or nest egg can help you get. That's great.
100%. Because like if you think about your job, like it's a transactional thing a lot of the time, right? Like we are giving our skills to get a paycheck and that relationship is ephemeral. It will go away. It cannot be forever. A lot of those relationships are relationships of convenience. Not all of them, but many of them are. They will not stand the test of time. But like when you think about finally having your time back, because we give so much to our jobs, they'll demand as much as we're willing to give it. And that means we're deprioritizing ourselves, the things we're
doing. Maybe we should say we all have term limits and that's it. We can't go beyond them. It works every 2 years or years.
I like it. Yeah. I have to say though, like you have to have a life you're excited to live outside of work. If you don't, that depression stat I mentioned will hit you, and that sucks. But you can build that life. It's not like it has to already exist. Like that time again is it's like a currency. The way you spend it can invest in new skills in yourself, like I did with pool and relationships. I reconnected with like some family I had lost touch with, even traveling to go see them. Because normally I couldn't go see them, right? Because they would be on different school schedules and stuff, and they just never really worked. Well, now I'm like, hey, I got nothing blocking me. I'll go travel when you're free, sure. And I get a cheap ticket way in advance. And I just go out and see them. So all kinds of opportunities pop up.
You ever get any resentment from family members or, hey, how come you get to do whatever you want? We don't.
Okay, so I have two teenager minds. My son's 19 now. My daughter's 15. They just joke with like, we love that you're here all the time. This is like, and my wife says it's the best version of me she's ever seen. So that's good. But it's like, you're not retired. You're working. You're just working for yourself, blah, 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 blah. So they like to tease me a lot about that. But no, I don't think there's any genuine resentment. Like my buddies at pool and my other friends, they'll go, oh yeah, you suck. You're retired. You don't have to worry about, traffic. You get to sleep in, da, da, da. So there'll be some like, messing around kind of stuff. But no, I haven't sensed any genuine resentment. And plus I'm trying to help people. So a lot of them are getting time with me, and we're working on making their situations better too. So that usually helps.
Because people can't see you, that we could assume that you're in your hot tub smoking a cigar while you do a visitor. You right?
You got it. Yeah, I know. I mean, that's kind of, whatever makes you happy. And back to that spending thing you mentioned, like if you gave someone gave you $1,000, you could spend it. We gotta spend money. We can spend what we're given to spend. And I think a lot of people think of their paycheck, whatever's left after those essentials, like your rent and, the things that you have to spend it on, they will spend what's left. Most people in that paycheck. And therefore you end up in the scarcity mindset of paycheck to paycheck. I never have enough. If only I had more money. But the truth is, if you got more money, you'd spend that too. So you have to hack your mind a little bit here, and you have to realize like, okay, it's never going to feel as good to save as it does to spend. So if I automatically have some of that money put into the thing, I know that personally it's harder for me to do. Whatever's left, we will fit our life size to. So if we had $100 left in our paycheck all of a sudden, we wouldn't be on the street. We would actually go and figure out what to do about it. And if that $100 is breaking the bank for you, I promise you there's something in your spending you can optimize. I've yet to find a person that's not true.
Have you ever talked to anyone or done this where you practice poverty for a day? Like you say, I'm going to try to live off $20 today, no matter what I can do.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard stories of people do this, like they'll do like serious trial runs, where they'll just like completely give up living in their home and everything just to see how they can build their life back up and stuff. No stunts like that, right? Like the truth is, so many of us can relate to poverty. We're living mostly in the stress of it. We don't need to artificially introduce more of it. But I do think
what if you did like intermittent money fasting?
Yeah.
You really tried 2 days a month to like live off of half of what you normally live off of in a day, to create a little bit more room, or just show you that it's not going to kill you, to not have much for a day or two.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's kind of where I was going to go with it, is like there are deliberate or intentional strategies in there where you can say, okay, would I be okay if I didn't spend the way I think I need to spend for a week? And then I've actually done this before, where I've locked up my credit card, just locked it away and didn't have it on me. And so nothing could go on the thing. And then time goes on, I kind of forgot I had put it away because I just wasn't using it anymore. So we actually do adapt our behaviors in the moment to what's going on. And if we think we need something and we do a trial where we take it away from ourselves, like in your case, the financial fasting is a really cool idea. Like, okay, well, let's try this. There's this thing called a me money budget, where you only allow yourself to spend the cash that you had withdrawn for yourself. So let's say it's like $500. You only allowed to spend that $500, and it has to be from that cash. Try to live off that for a month and see how far you get. You might find it's much easier than you think. You don't spend as much money on yourself as you think, or you run out of it really fast. Either way, it's a learning opportunity, and you'll get a lot out of that exercise. And maybe, like you said, it could be a deliberate tool to allow yourself to restrict in some schedule to make more progress towards your goal. But with a program plan, you can see how far that's getting you. And that's the big difference. How far is it helping? Is it worth the sacrifice? If not, don't do it. It's not worth it.
And got it. Well, very good. So where can people get your book, Escape the Clock, and where can they find out more about your plans?
Yeah, sure. So escapetheclock.com is where I put everything to make it easy. I didn't go out to write a book or anything, but like I said, because when I ended up in this early retirement, I did get a lot of attention. People were really interested. They wanted like a book for it. So I wrote a book. It won a bunch of awards, including it just got the American Writing Award for the year for best personal finance book and retirement book. Really proud of it. I do think it's a comprehensive guide for anyone who's trying to figure out how do I make sense of all these complexities and get something going. But you don't have to go buy a book to get help from what I'm doing. I do a free weekly podcast, also called Escape the Clock. No ads, just a free podcast I put out for education information. I also have the planning tool that I built for myself over 20 years is very comprehensive. I made it into a template, so you can get a copy of that. If you just like, hey, I don't even know how to get the data put together or whatever, you can go get that on the escapetheclock.com as well. There's a newsletter there where I put out just ideas and strategies every week. And you can even schedule time with me at the site. I do free one-on-one consulting with people to try to help people get their plans going. Feel free to do that. I will not charge you, I promise, no matter how many meetings you need. And I think those are all hopefully great options for someone. My goal is to help people have the information they need, because once you have a plan, it makes a significant difference. There's actual real data that people actually are much more profitable just by the act of writing something down. Creating a finance plan will, in a weird way, make you wealthier. It's a crazy stat, but it's true. So just start making your plan if you don't have one. And I have all the information on escapetheclock.com if you need help.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for coming and spending your time and giving out all your wisdom. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Richard. Appreciate you having me on. It was a fun conversation. And I wishing you the best with your financial freedom as well.
If you like this podcast, please click the link in the description to subscribe and review us on iTunes.
Thank you for listening to the Good Question Podcast. Please email support@thegoodquestionpodcast.com if you have any referrals to great guests for us to interview. Visit thegoodquestionpodcast.com to hear more interviews. And please help us spread the word by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to this podcast.